Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fantasy Gods. As always, I'm Brett Chaves, and with me, the main man himself, Ben Pope. Ben, it's another session gone, and both basketball and hockey have been right on their game, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're getting a lot of conversations moving along as fantasy playoffs are coming up for both sports, who you should start and sit, and some of the stars that could potentially carry you to a championship. It's definitely different than fantasy football, so we get to talk about it a little bit today.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump right into it, into our best playoff picks for both fantasy basketball and hockey. Of course, I'll be covering the hockey, and Ben will be covering the basketball. Moving into my first guy here, Alexander Barkov of the Florida Panthers. Alexander Barkov has really been one of the most star-studded players in this Panthers roster, if not the entire National Hockey League. Moving forward, I think you're going to see a lot more of this spread out Panther system, but you can always rely on Alexander Barkov to really be a consistent player in fantasy hockey. 20 goals, 34 assists. He's averaging about 17 fantasy points per game right now, which for centers in the league right now in terms of fantasy, really good right now. Staying consistent, that's exactly what you want. Moving into playoffs, so looking forward, I think Barkov is going to be someone that a lot of players rely on, and especially for the Florida Panthers into the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, so I guess I'll turn over to my first player on the basketball side of things. I'm going to be talking about one of my alma mater, one of my guys from the Heat, Tyler Herro, guard from the Miami Heat. He has been unbelievable since the All-Star game break. He's been the leading scorer for Miami. He's been right over 21 points per game over the season now. He's been absolutely fantastic. He's really taken over as the number one option for Miami. And I think he's honestly a great option coming into the fantasy playoffs. He's been averaging close to 40 points per game on an ESPN level 5v5. And he's been doing phenomenal. He's been top 5 or top 15, excuse me, in field goal attempts. He's been averaging close to 40% from three. He's been an unbelievable player thus far, and I think he just continues on as Miami continues to fight for and hopefully holds on to the number one seed in the East.
Yeah, I think Tyler Hero is definitely one of those guys you can rely on as well moving forward. The Heat have been a top team in the Eastern Conference all season long, and pretty much any player from that perimeter offense from the Heat is something you can really look forward to on a consistent basis.
For sure.
So moving into my last guy from hockey here, it's none other than Kale Mccarr from the Colorado Avalanche. This kid, ever since coming out of UMass Amherst, has really held his own and sort of reached his almost full potential here with Colorado. Known as one of the more productive offensive defensemen. I know it sounds like a bit of a rebuttal there in vocabulary, but he's really been productive from the blue line, scoring goals, making offensive production happen left and right. He's only got 12 penalty minutes on the season, so not a lot of negative points allowed so far and taken back from him in fantasy production. So I think a lot of fantasy owners are going to see Kale Mccarr become one of those prime defensemen to watch out for in the playoffs. And if the Avalanche are playing that day, if you're in a one-on-one matchup, I think he's someone that no doubtably has to be in your lineup.
For sure. I'll turn over to my second guy now, and I'm going to double down on the guard position. I'm going to be talking about Tyrese Haliburton, a guard from the Indiana Pacers. Since his trade from the Sacramento Kings just about a month ago, he has been phenomenal, averaging close to a double-double since joining the Pacers with points and assists, just under 10 assists and close to 18 points per game. He's been doing phenomenal, averaging close to 2 steals per game, which is a really good asset to have in ESPN fantasy leagues, and he's been doing phenomenal. He's really taken on the number one position over Domantas Sabonis, who got traded in the same deal for Sabonis. So he's been doing phenomenal, and I really think that him averaging close to 45 points per game in ESPN leagues, he's been doing phenomenal, and he's been extremely consistent. With both Herro and Haliburton, they've shown really great consistency, which can be a great thing when you have some superstars on your team to really balance out and honestly deliver you a great fantasy championship.
Yeah, I think you absolutely hit it on the nose there. Tyrese Haliburton has really, as I mentioned with Kale Mccarr, held his own and sort of reached that high potential with Indiana. You see the consistency levels with him on a daily basis. And if you're a fantasy owner, including myself, you can see Tyrese Haliburton really shine, especially in the back end of fantasy playoffs.
For sure. Balancing the superstars with those guys that can be really consistent week to week, it's a really great recipe for a fantasy championship, whether in hockey or basketball.
Absolutely.
Well, that does it here for Fantasy Gods. We will see you next time. And as always,
keep calm, play fantasy.